Welcome. Today we're going to talk about battling. We've got an enemy class, we've got a player class, we may as well make them fight. So first thing I'm going to do is add an option for that in the town. We enter the catacombs, and the catacombs will be where you fight the enemies. So I've added the option to the town intro, so the player knows that's an option. I added C as an option for my get char method, and right here, if they press C, you call this catacombs method. The catacombs is where the magic happens. And so the first little bit here in catacombs is I don't want to kick the player back to town each time they defeat an enemy. So they've got kind of this while loop around everything. Char keep going equals Y, while keep going is equal to Y. Do all the combat. And then at the end of combat, it says, would you like to keep going into the catacombs? Yes or no? And it'll only let them pick yes or no. And if it's a yes, this loop will continue. And if it's a no, they'll be kicked back to town. So that's what's going on there. When they enter this while loop, it will get a random enemy based on the player's level. So we give the player's level to the enemy.getEnemy method, and if you remember, that had this random kind of like set up the enemy array if it's not set up yet, and then copy an enemy like within one level of the player from this array. So if my player is going to get many more levels, I'm going to need a lot more enemies. Or to adjust the formula. Anyway, once the enemy is gotten, we'll print out you encountered a wild get enemy name, tribute to Pokemon. And then in a while true loop, keep battling while everyone's alive. It'll print the player's HP and their max HP, so kind of like name, HP, max HP. It'll print the enemy's name and HP. Ask the player what they'd like to do, attack or run, get their choice from that. If their choice is an A, if they want to attack. I made it so the player gets to hit first every time. You could mess with that. You could have stats that influence that. But I went this way. And so I made this little player. If player.player hits enemy, like it takes the enemy object and just decides whether the player managed to hit the enemy. I added a protection trait to enemy, also golden experience, because I forgot to add that in the last video, and we'll need that to figure out how much we gain if we defeat them. So anyway, back in player, if I go to here, it's where we're checking if we hit the enemy or not. In player, where we got that, we've got this, a beautiful thing. Now, you 100% do not have to do anything remotely like this. I just made something up. I figured maybe your strength and weapon quality influences how likely you are to hit. I then multiply that by a math.random times 1.5 and then add 0.05. So that gives me this little bit here will be a random number between 0.5 and 2. Or almost 2. So basically you've got a number equal to your strength and weapon quality from half that total to double that total. And if that's greater than the enemy's protection value, you hit. And I may definitely need to modify this formula or modify enemy stats or modify player stats to make it so you're hitting the right amount of times that I would like the player to hit. Later on, when checking if the enemy hits, it's basically the same idea, though I made it so it's a random number between the enemy's damage, like half their enemy's damage and 1.5 times the enemy's damage, because it's more interesting when the player hits more often. The enemies don't have to hit every time. And I have that the odds of them hitting depend on the player's protection and speed. So if we go back to main, we want to figure out how much damage we're doing. And so I should probably figure that out. maybe it depends on the enemy, in which case I could create this method. Currently it's red because I haven't made it yet. I could pass in enemy if I wanted it to depend on protection. Maybe that could be useful, but I'm not going to bother this time. For now, I'm going to make it super simple. You might want to do some math.random stuff to make it a random amount of damage, but I'm going to say if you manage to hit, you do a damage equal to your strength plus weapons quality. Every time, I would probably want to mess with that if I was doing something more significant. But if we go back to main here, now it's all happy here. We've got a number for damage, which is just the player's strength plus his weapon quality. And then it'll print out, you hit the enemy's name for however much damage you did. And then the enemy will take damage right here. And this we can make really easy. We could just do like their HP minus equal damage. We don't need to make it complicated. So now the enemy's hit points have been reduced by the damage. Now, yeah. All right, if you didn't hit the enemy, you want to tell the user that they missed the enemy. So that's what this is going on. So if they attack, this is the player's attempt. If they manage to kill the enemy right here, it'll say, hey, the enemy's name is terminated. You received so much experience and so much gold. The player's got to gain the gold. And the amount of gold they gain is whatever the enemy's gold value is. So we'll make that. So I'm going to create that method in player. I'm just hitting Alt-Enter here. Or Option Return for Mac. And that'll just make the method header for me here. And then I just want the player's gold to go up. Maybe this dot gold plus equals gold. So I want the player's field gold to go up by this argument gold. I could just change the name so I don't have to do this disambiguation, but whatever. And then in here, I'm going to create method gain experience. And right now I'm going to make it super boring. But later on, I'm going to add the level up mechanic in here as well. So right now I'm going to say, basically the same thing. I'm going to say, hey, this dot experience should go up by experience. But I'm going to do to do here. So I want to add level up code later in a future video, but let's not overcomplicate things for the moment. So if we go back to main, we keep on going. The player has gained his experience, and this break will break out of the inner while loop, which involves the battle. And so it'll bring the player to this point, because this is the end bracket for that while true loop. So yeah, if you beat the enemy, you're out of the keep battling the current enemy while loop, and then it'll ask if you want to fight again. So after this if statement, it'll check, hey, did the enemy hit the player? And so we've got another similar thing we looked into before that determines whether the enemy hit the player. And then we want to calculate the damage as well. And so we should have the player figuring out how much damage the player takes. Maybe for this one, we'll get a little creative and say the damage they take is equal to, let me just double check quick that. All right, so this method looks like it's pulling double duty, not only calculating the damage, but also reducing the player's hit points. So we need to do both. So we should figure out what we want it to be. I'm going to make it equal to, maybe I'll make it int dam, or d, is equal to a damage minus, let's say, armor.getProtection divided by 3. I'm just making stuff up here. You can do the same. You got to play your game and then balance it and just mess with your math until it works nicely. Anyway, and actually this could bring it below 0, which I do not want it to do. So I'm going to make it equal to the math.max of this and 0. So basically this will just make it so the damage you're receiving can never get below 0. And then we will make the player lose this many hit points. So we're going to say HP minus equals D, and then we'll just return D. And then everything is working. So the player takes the damage and it's saved to a variable, so we can print it out, and it'll be say, hey, this current enemy hits you, the goblin hits you for 5 damage. And if they didn't hit you, if this check to see if the enemy hit you is false, it'll print the goblin or whatever it is missed. And here's where I deal with the runaway thing, because I wanted to give the enemy the chance to attempt to hit you as you escape. And I could throw in something here just to check to see if you manage to escape based on your stats or something and the enemy stats, but I've just made it so you always get to escape, but you might take a hit on the way out. And then we hit the, would you like to keep going into the catacombs? So I think it's going to work now. I haven't tested it. Let's find out. So see if I get killed by a slime in the first thing. So we've got, we're welcome to the town. Should we enter the catacombs? We encountered a wild slime. I've got lots of hit points. The slime doesn't have so many. This should be easy. You hit the slime for 17 damage. Slime terminated. Apparently I am a moron with my spacing, so I can just fix that very quickly. So you hit the slime for so many damage and the slime terminated. So that's all right here. I just need a space there and a space there, and that should fix it. But yeah, this is looking pretty good for now. I'm gonna keep trying again. Counter a wild goblin. I'll try and attack it. Oh, I'm doing pretty good here. Yeah. Looks like it's all working as planned. Thanks for watching, and good luck. In the next video, we will go over how to make level up happen and how you can mess with that. Thanks for listening.